welcome to Agribusiness Media's weekly webinars, where we delve into the thriving world of farming. My name is Rawlings, your host, and I will be moderating this event today. And welcome to this enlightening session on greenhouse tomato production. So from selecting the perfect variety to unlocking the secrets of success, we've got you covered today. We are live on the Agribusiness Media Facebook page, and please do engage with us throughout the event. We are thrilled to introduce our panel of industry trailblazers. We do have Lebrin Swanda from SeedCo Vegetables, Zidzai from ZFC, and Blessing from Humuson Complex. And this webinar will feature insightful presentations followed by an interactive question and answer session where you farmers can interact with our experts today. Without further ado, let's kick off with our first presentation. Lebrin Swanda from SeedCo Vegetables. He will enlighten us on varieties, success strategies, as well as the economics of production. Take it away, Lebrin.
My name is Lebrin Swanda. I'm going to be taking you through the next few sets of slides where we're going to be discussing greenhouse tomato production. I will also touch a few other aspects, which I believe my colleagues Zidzai and Blessing will also add more flesh, also make some expansions, but I will predominantly focus on the importance of using the correct varieties and which those varieties are. So generally, I'm going to be equipping the participants with the best production practices and then the key genetics that they can choose from the SeedCo Vegetables basket. Now, with all farming that we do, we quickly emphasize issues to do with good agronomic practices, where we insist that you want to make sure you do your soil fertility tests. Here in many platforms, we still have farmers trying to ask what sort of fertilizer should I use, and so on and so on. We want you to use specific programs. And this is very critical when we're talking of greenhouse crops, especially the tomatoes, where you want to harvest for over 6 months. So that whole entire process is not going to be a process where we're trying to be making some guesses there. We also want you to be getting the maximum yield possible from the variety, which could be as high as between 12 and 15 kgs per plant over that duration of the harvest. The good soil preparation issues, we emphasize these ones. And then also a very strong one that I would want the participants to take note of: quality seedlings. You want quality seedlings. And then once we also mention issues to do with quality seedlings, we will also emphasize the issues of doing with genuine seedlings. It has to be genuine seedlings. We have had instances where it is now quite rampant, where entrepreneurs in the industry of agriculture, the same way they do to fertilizers, creating fake fertilizers and so on and so on, we now have also some unorthodox nurseries peddling certain varieties as the varieties, but material being recycled material, where you then find the farmer with tomatoes turning yellow and so on, no vigor, no uniform fruits as a result of fake seed or fake seedlings. And then obviously the healthy crop, that's a component of the your pest and disease management, your nutrition management is part of getting the high yield. You will notice that I calculated for greenhouses using a hectare, though you will discover that with greenhouses, we are allowed to get as much as, I would call it what, probably is greenhouses as small as a greenhouse which will give you 500 plants or even 600 plants. I remember if you visited our field day last week, you saw the tunnels that we have. They contain about 600 plants. Out of the 600 plants, we also calculate that to give you the individual yield per plant, which could be between 12 and 15 kgs, like I indicated. But for a hectare of a greenhouse, if you're going to really go big, that's the kind of yield that you're looking at, where you get in excess of about 285 tons per hectare in terms of greenhouses. Land preparation for tomatoes. We expect you to, after selecting a greenhouse, which is a controlled environment, we expect you to do your conventional tillage, but in greenhouses, because of their size, we generally do trenches to achieve our conventional tillage. And then we want to ensure that we achieve the 40 to 45 centimeter depth. And we also finally remain with good tilt, which allows water to be distributed uniformly on the beds and within the plants. Now, once you are done with your soil tests and your selection of fertilizers, we then now go to the varieties that come from the basket. It's not all varieties that could do in the greenhouse. This is for reasons where we want to make sure we maintain pollination, we maintain the longevity of the crop, where we want to harvest for up to 6 months in the greenhouse. So it's very important to choose the correct variety in our basket so that you don't get robbed of your resources. So the first variety that I'm going to talk of here is Oasis F1. Oasis F1 in the greenhouses, it will mature within 70 days, and the fruit weight will be about 200 grams per fruit. The clusters will come with about 5 to 6 fruits on average. So every cluster should be able to deliver over a kg for you. This will deliver to you also very bright red fruit at maturity, which is something which is critical depending on the markets that you're selling to. And the uniformity of these varieties is really, really very good, coming in with uniform round and very smooth tomatoes. These varieties can be planted, of course, today we're focusing on the greenhouse, but you can plant Oasis also in the open field. Now, with our varieties, we also bring them with a good disease package where we have high resistances for tomato mosaic virus, the wilts, the Fusarium crown rot, the leaf mold, which are very critical in a greenhouse. And then they also come with very good tolerance to nematode attack. Because remember, over the period of harvesting, you don't want your varieties to start complaining of root issues where nematodes can start manifesting sometimes. The second variety, I think currently, for those who have done tomatoes, they will attest to its prolificness, which is the variety called Candela F1. Now, this one comes with fairly big fruits as compared to Oasis, giving you 200 to 250 gram fruits. And the biggest catch with Candela is that it has got very short internodes. So when you are growing in a season where it is warm and you want your tomato so that you don't stack too high, it allows you to have very pegged clustering, and it has got a very good foliage cover, which is something that allows it also to be grown in the open field. Then the maturity days is 75 to 75 days to maturity to first picking. You can also grow this variety in the open field and in the greenhouse. Again, it comes with good resistances on the tomato mosaic variants, and then it also does the wilts, including the leaf kill diseases, which are mostly viral driven. If you have got your white flies and so on, these will transmit these diseases. Then the third variety, which completes the 3 varieties that we have, it's a variety called Alhambra F1. This is also very high yielding, versatile, indeterminate variety. This comes now with the medium fruits. If your market is requiring medium to small fruits, this will give you about 160 to 180 grams of fruit sizes. It comes in with a slightly longer maturity days, which is about 90 days. So this maturity shows that it's a variety which also can grow under warm conditions, where you then know the temperatures will also speed up the maturity dates. It can also be grown both in the open field and greenhouses. And it also comes with very good resistances of the tomato mosaic virus. It also does the bacterial wilts, the leaf mold, and then also the nematodes. This one now, it comes with the longest harvest time. I think I remember seeing one variety in a production in Manicaland, where the variety been harvested for as long as the plants were almost getting to about 5 meters long under a good management. So it's a variety which will give you quite a very extended harvest time in terms of yield. Of course, these are the open fields. So those who are going to be making reference, probably you have just joined the webinar because you want to just hear about tomatoes. From the open field range, I will not really draw much on them, but we have Daisy, which is a round variety. Nash is also a round. And then the last three, your Chibli, Petra Rosa, and HTX14, these are dual purpose or the blocky type varieties, which are used for processing and also for the fresh market. Obviously, they come with different specs in terms of fruit size and so on, but I will not dwell much on these ones. But if you're going to consider growing open field varieties, this is the selection that you're going to consider. Then in terms of tomato production, we are also having a very new variety in the range of the open field, just to support the previous varieties that I was making reference to, where we have got Amo F1. It's a variety which is producing the same blocky fruits, though these are slightly bigger, and it's also a semi-determinate variety. So if you're going to grow tomatoes open field and you want to plant, especially in the rain season where you want to trellis the variety, but your market requires your blocky fruit, this is your variety of choice. I'll quickly move to tomato production just to show the spacings. The lower populations are for open field, and then the higher population comes in for the greenhouse, where you get about 30,000 plants in a hectare. Very critical to make sure you take note of that. Then for all horticultural crops, when you've selected your varieties, we want to make sure that you do your soil test, so that the team from ZFC, they can make sure they can then give you a proper program to follow. Take note that all our basal fertilizers, we insist that you put them at the base of the plant. We don't put basal fertilizers after transplanting. We want them positioned well in the trenches, in the layers, so that you get the benefits. Let's make sure we apply the fertilizers at the right time. You hear people talking of the shelf life for tomatoes in the greenhouse, for example. You have to know when to put your nitrates, when to put your phosphates, and when to put your potash fertilizers. You also want to be putting the correct amounts. These have to coexist in terms of the ratios. So I'm sure Zida is going to touch on that as well. This is just a representation of why it's critical for you to test your soils. All this detail, it just explains where exactly you get the best performance of each, availability of each of those critical nutrients in terms of your varieties. Where the bar gets narrow, it shows that you get less and less availability of that particular nutrient. Now, you will notice that in this presentation, you're going to find quite also other information which is very critical. We have always dealt with your NPK recommendations in horticulture, that is your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash, as well as the trace elements. It's very critical in tomatoes that you apply foliars that supply these trace elements. They're very, very critical. It's different from growing a maize or soybean, where though we need some few trace elements, we don't really overemphasize them. You also notice that in this discussion, you're going to hear presentations on growth stimulants. These will come in all sorts of forms. Some are root-based, some are foliars, but they supply the amino acids, critical vitamins, cytokinins, oxidants, and so on. These are no longer optional when you're growing a crop where you want to achieve between 12 and 15 kgs in your candela, or in your oasis, or in your alhambra in the greenhouse. Now, I will not dwell on this because I'm sure Zida is going to take this, but this was just a quick show to indicate, the kind of type of fertilizers and the estimate amount in the absence of a soil test result. But I'm sure Zida is going to handle that. Then the diseases, I'm going to be quick just to make sure that when growing crops in a greenhouse, we try and reduce the impact of diseases by making the environment controlled. But depending on the design of your greenhouse and the cladding material used, some variety greenhouses allow rain in, so you need to take note of that. So from the basics, make sure you're choosing the right variety so that you're aware of its weaknesses and its strength, especially the disease package. You need to have a robust fungicide spray program. You also need to have a good nutrition program that doesn't promote the occurrence of disease and pests. You want to water the crops correctly using the drip system, where you avoid putting leaves on the plant. And then you want also to avoid pruning. In the greenhouse, we trellis and we prune. We want to avoid working with the plants when the foliage is wet. That gives us some issues in terms of pathogens multiplying faster than we would have expected. Now, what about in terms of major pests and diseases? You want to control them at transplanting using those chemicals. Those are cutworms. You also have issues to do with plant populations, but in the greenhouse for grasshoppers, that's not a problem. And then the bollworms, these are also a problem in the greenhouse. We expect them to be controlled with those. Those are just options. But with a good spray program, you have to then follow exactly your chemicals in sequence so that you avoid repeating the chemicals. You also have whiteflies as major pests and diseases, especially in the greenhouse. I think these are because of the temperatures, they really multiply fast. So you want to manage them so that you avoid getting whiteflies infest your greenhouse. Tutor, we thought when you have greenhouses, you would have won the war against tutor, but we seem to still have occurrence and even outright losses on greenhouses. So because of the ventilation, you need to make sure the structure at least excludes as much as possible the moth that comes from to then lay eggs, and then the larvae becomes destructive. Then red spider mites, we have had instances, especially in the warm season, where red spider mites also become prolific, but this should also be sprayed based on scouting so that you avoid a resistance build-up. Major diseases, we expect early blight and late blight, and those are just options that you use. And then you also expect powdery mildew and downy mildew in the greenhouse. And then the wilts, these occur depending with the variety. Usually it's very critical to check whether the variety has got resistances, but sometimes it occurs when the greenhouse is already infested, or alternatively you're over irrigating. So you need to be irrigating correctly to avoid overwatering, which may result in the occurrence of wilts. Also emphasize the use of what you call cultural practices in terms of pest and disease management. This includes your rotations, your field hygiene, and then sanitizing the equipment. You'll notice that when pruning tomatoes, we have to consistently use the scissors so that you are cutting, you're dipping your scissors in some copper solution or some disinfecting solution so that you don't spread the disease from one plant to the other. And then, of course, this brings us to the end of my presentation. I'm sure the next two presenters will also put in depth where I was just trying to rush through. But should you have any questions, you can put them on the platform so that we respond to them and explain more. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation. If you do have any questions for Lebrinth, please type in the chat or chat room here on Zoom, or you can comment if you are watching us live on the Agribusiness Media Facebook page. For our budding farmers and existing farmers, those that are seeking guidance on maintaining soil health and also implementing an effective crop protection program, Simon Noto from ZFC Limited, also we know it as Ziva Fertilizer Chaiyo, is here to share his wisdom. Over to you, Zizai.
So we are going to be talking about more of the crop protection aspects as well as the crop nutrition aspect of your greenhouse tomato production. So this is basically the presentation, the outline of my presentation, which we will dwell on. So most of us farmers may want to understand why we want to consider greenhouse tomatoes. The major advantages that have to do with your greenhouse is that you get to control the environment in which you grow your crops. It means once you have your control of your environment, it means you can produce high quality fruits where you can produce yields that are significant enough to give you high returns, or in terms of value, you realize more out of that kind of an area. So you realize that with the greenhouse production, it's basically more of an intensive kind of system where you want to produce more out of the very little piece of land that you would have. But for us to be able to achieve that, or to be able to reach those goals, we need to have certain systems in place so that you get the most of the crop. So basically, the first thing that we may want to look at is to do with your integrated pest management, which we shortened by saying IPM. It's basically a phenomenon that has different aspects that have got to be put into play for us to be able to reach the desired goal. First of all, we look at biological control methods. We look at chemical control methods. Your cultural, these probably include your rotations, the pheromone traps, the hygienic practices, etc., as well as physical control methods. Because in some instances, you don't really necessarily have to use your pesticides, but you may want to use an approach where you can even physically destroy an insect or remove a diseased crop in order for us to be able to manage, rather than coming in with your whether your biological or your chemical control methods. But now, it's also important for the farmer to understand that this IPM approach is applicable for all the various pests that we encounter in our fields, be it your nematodes, your diseases, your insects, or what. So this is basically the goal that we would want to reach, to have a very clean crop as this one. It might not be possible because, remember, as agronomists, we recommend that usually you come in with your control measures when you have an economic threshold level. When you've done your scouting, you've come to understand that there is some pest damage that's going in, then you can then come in with your control measures. So it might not be as good, it might not be as easy to get such a clean crop, but it's possible once you have mastered all the principles with practice and time. So what should we do for us to be able to have a good, for a farmer to be able to be a good insect manager? You want to do your regular scouting. This should be a routine for every farmer to get into their fields, particularly the greenhouse, get to inspect the underside of your leaves, the top side of your leaves, check the roots, check the water systems, etc., because you've got a number of soil pests that dwell in the different parts of your crop. The canopy inhabits a number of crops, but it should be within your means to be able to assess and identify the kind of pest that's in there. And this is when I was saying you then make a decision to come in with a control measure once you have come to understand that this pest is now at an economic injury level. By this, you need to have monitoring tools in place, like your pheromone traps. They work for a number of insect pests, your tuta absoluta, your whiteflies. I'm sure Labyrinth is elaborated a bit on those ones. So these are basically your monitoring tools where you then have them placed in the field. You get to assess the pest populations and then come in with the appropriate measures. In some instances, instead of coming in with chemicals, you can come in with your natural predators. It's only a few farmers that are practicing this, where you introduce some predators that then get to eat the actual insect that's biting or disturbing your crop. But we also have our chemical control methods. And basically for your cutworms, you want to use your lambda, your fenvarelet, and your chlorpyrifos, which are applied as a drench after transplanting. Then for your aphids, you've got to drench with your Actara, spray your dimethoate as well as your thunder. For the lepidopteran pests, that is your tuta absoluta, the bowworms, the leaf miners. At ZFC, we've got what we call the tuta pack. It basically has 3 products: your cyromazine, indoxacarb, as well as your spike extra. These 3 are a good combination of that. If you use in rotation, you have a good control of your tuta absoluta or your bowworms once they are in your crop. Then for the red spider mite, you can use your abamectin, dimethoate, malathion, as well as the spike extra as well. Your thrips, you use your Ampligo, Thunder. Whiteflies, you use your spike extra, Actara, as well as the imidacloprid. But now for the disease management, it's a fairly different kind of an approach, because remember, for the insects, you come in with a control measure, probably once you have seen that is certain insect is coming, or for those that which we know are certainly present, like your soil pests, you then come in with the necessary control. But with the disease management, you want to prevent them from coming in, because basically what it entails is that, remember we said the greenhouse is an enclosed environment where you've got high humidity levels, where you've got high temperatures. So because of those factors, what you simply need is a virulent pathogen that is able to establish itself on the leaves, stem, or fruit of your crop to be able to cause a disease. So this is when you want to have the high humidity, the high temperature for the growth of your crop, but you don't want that as well to be able to control or manage your diseases. This is when you come in with your fungicides as preventive sprays, so that they don't get to establish on those plant parts. But probably to aid with that, you want to make sure that in your seedbed you have introduced your apron star, which prevents your early season pests and diseases. You don't want your bacterial cankers, your pythium root rots, etc. Your apron star will help you with the management of your seedlings at that stage. And you also have got plant activators such as your bion, which should be applied before the onset of a disease, so that the plant's immune system is then boosted, and then the product gets to work in combination with the preventive fungicides. In which case, we've got your Revas, Mancozeb, difenoconazole, copper oxychloride, amongst others, which also include your Bellis, your Anthraco, etc. We also stock those ones for you to be able to include them in your fungicidal rotation program. But in the event that sometimes your disease is setting, you want to come in with your curative fungicides, like your Deleta, your Metalman, your Tebuconazole, Deleta for the early and late blight, Metalman for the late blight, as well as the downy mildew, and your Tebuconazole for the powdery mildew. So it's also important for the farmer to read and understand the label, what it states, the pre-harvest intervals, the follow-up periods, etc., and for you to be able to understand the disease that is coming into your crop. But if you do use these preventive fungicides, you will have less challenges with with the diseases that may set in within your greenhouse. Moving on to nematodes control. Basically, nematodes, you can't see them by your naked eye. They are resident in the soil. They are very microscopic, but the damage that they cause can be alarming. Basically, that picture is showing us, it's an illustration of the damage that can happen to the roots of your crop once they are infected with your nematodes. For us to be able to control nematodes, we need to do what we call crop rotation. Bring in your tomatoes, you bring in your brassicas, probably your cucurbits again, then back again to the solanaceous crops, or even your legumes. You can use them within the greenhouse for rotation purposes. You can also do your fumigation, solarization, and use of your nematodes, which is of your nematicides, which is basically the chemical control. We've got a number of nematicides that are in the market, which you can use in your tomato production. But now, let me also highlight the importance of what we call the soil fumigants. Basically, these ones, they kill anything that's surviving in the soil. You hear sometimes farmers having challenges to do the verticillium wilt, your bacterial wilt, be it the viral, fungal, or bacterial pathogens that are resident within the soil that affect your crop. You can use your methyl sodium to fumigate the greenhouse soil. So as you'll be using this, you cover the soil with some plastic after applying the product. Then you have to let the land should lie fallow for at least 3 weeks, so that you allow the chemical to work well, as well as for it to degrade within the soil. Because if you do transplant or plant anything within the 3 weeks, you have challenges with your crop establishing, because it will die off. Because remember, I said these fumigants, they kill anything that's surviving. So basically, that's how best you can then have control over your problematic viruses, your bacteria, as well as your fungal pathogens. Moving on to soil health, I'm sure Labdin has elaborated on the importance of the good varieties that you want, that you can select, the disease packages that they offer. But I'm sure every soil can then be conditioned for us to be able to grow any tomato variety that we so desire. Your pH range basically for tomatoes should be from 6 to 6.5. It's important for farmers to come in with decomposed manure is part of an integration with the synthetic fertilizers that we sell at ZFC. But let me also highlight a critical factor of the farmers that we also have. There is a new phenomenon in agriculture called the biostimulants, where you make use of your microbials to enhance nutrient uptake, etc. These have been proven to work well, and ZFC, I'm glad to announce to you that ZFC is working on a number of these biostimulants that are in the pipeline for you to be able to get out of the most of the synthetic fertilizers that you've got, that you've got from the usual supply that we have got is ZFC Limited. So biostimulants, they are very important. They work in enhancing uptake of nutrients, and I'm sure most of you would want to try these as part of an integration process to improve nutrient uptake, as well as improvement of yields and quality. So looking on to the soil and plant nutrition, what we want for us, what we want as agronomists is that for you to be able to supply particular nutrients in the rightful quantities, so that you get the best out of your crop. Each nutritional element has got its important roles. It's important for the farmer to understand that. So basically, for tomato nutrition, you want to make the requirements as closely as possible to the crop requirements with the supply of your fertilizers. And because of that, you've got different approaches which you can use. You can supply using your basal fertilizers, you can do your foliar sprays, you can do your fertigation. But for the importance of fertigation is that it's a bit more flexible, and it allows smaller amounts of nutrients to be delivered to your crop. Then you also want to take note of high temperatures within your crop, within the greenhouse, which then affects water uptake, etc., and the balance of your nutrients, so that you don't have some saline conditions or alkaline conditions within the root zone, which might be important for you to be able to have an EC meter for you to be able to measure those elements. Then moving on, basically what we so desire is for you to be able to achieve such kind of a crop, a tomato crop that is got such a beautiful cluster within your greenhouse, because this is when you then get to have your 10 kgs per plant within the greenhouse, depending on the varieties and as well as the key factor, your management, because the genetics might have that potential, but it's also important for you to be able to come in with the good practices for you to be able to get that crop management. So basically, this is a layout of your NPK requirements of your crop. They are quite high, but for your nitrogen, you want to be careful because you don't want to avoid you want to avoid a situation what we call ammonium injury, where you then have an oversupply of your nitrogen. Tomatoes prefer nitrogen in the nitrate form rather than in the ammonium form. So it's important for the farmer to be able to understand that. Then for your phosphorus is good for your root development, etc. But an oversupply of your phosphorus sometimes results in an impediment of your of the uptake of other elements that are critical for crop growth. Then you also want to balance out your potassium with other elements as well, because again, as an oversupply, you may then induce your calcium and magnesium deficiency. So as much as you can afford to buy some fertilizers, it's important for you to understand the balance, which is why we always recommend farmers to come in to do their soil analysis first, so that we get to understand the nutritional levels that are within the soil. You are better off understanding, having a clearer picture of what's in the soil and applying everything in the appropriate or right amounts, rather than having an oversupply of each. You then confuse the crop as to which elements to pick up, and and utilize during the different growth stages. So for starters, you've got the mighty vegetable blend, your 92420. It has an additional element of zinc, 1% zinc, and your boron and your sulfur. You also have your tobacco blend or your high C 62023 in two formulations, and 62420, and your usual tobacco fat, your compound C is 51512, and your seedbed fat 721.8, which you can use in both the lands and in the field. But it's also important to have a cheap source of calcium supply, which is your gypsum or your calcium sulfate, that you can use during your transplanting. It's important to have the basal fertilizers embedded within the roots or within the soil so that there is active uptake of these nutrients right from the start, the crop grows. And for your top dressing fertilizers, we also have this other brilliant product called the ZFC Super Top, Potato Super Top. It has 23% of your nitrogen and 24% of your potash, so that you try and have both supply of your vegetative growth and the reproductive growth, because you want to have a balance. Remember, there was an illustration that there is a crop in Manicaland that reached even 5 meters. It's because of the nitrogen component that has been supplied to support the vegetative growth, and your potash as well in the form of 24%, which ensures more flowers and more fruit per cluster, which essentially means you then get to maximize the genetic potential of your crop, gets around about 2 kg per plant. You also have your potassium nitrate, your SOP, the straight fertilizers, depending on the program that would have been formulated by your agronomist, and your MKP, MAP, and your calcium nitrate. It's important for farmers to understand that calcium nitrate is not really mobile. It's very slow in terms of mobility. Right now we are in winter. If you supply it within the root zone, it can be difficult for it to get to the fruits, because the movement will be very slow. So it's rather recommended for you to be able to apply via spraying to your crop. But we've got other fertilizers that we call the specialty fertilizers, which you can then apply using the different methods, which you can which we'll elaborate after this page. You've got your quick start, quick grow, and your best bloom, as well as your magnesium nitrate and your magnesium sulfate. You see the different proportions of nutrients depending on the growth stage of your crop. This is exactly what we mean by the balance of your crop as you be managing it. This then becomes the key component for you, the farmer, to be able to come in and understand the different requirements of your crop, get to understand, engage with the agronomist, read around, for you to be able to manage well and get the best yield. For the application methods, we have got your drenching, where you simply dissolve your nutrients and deliver them via using a knapsack sprayer or even a watering can. You have your foliar sprays, where you spray onto the leaves of your crop, as well as the fruit. Then you've got your fertigation system, where you dissolve the nutrients and supply them using the drip irrigation system, or whichever irrigation system that you would have. But more economically, the drip irrigation system works well with fertigation. And this is just an illustration of the fertigation unit, where you've got your water source, where you also have the pumping unit, and you have an area where your fertilizer pipes meets with the water pipe, for you to be able to deliver the small amounts of nutrients right to the crop through the irrigation pipelines. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for listening to me. Those are my details. For those that may require them, I'm sure Mr. Rollins will give us a time to answer some questions just after the presentation. Thank you.
We appreciate your expertise, Zidzai. Thanks so much. Farmers, if you do have any questions for him, please type in the chat room, and please do stay tuned for the question and answer session after the next presentation. Next, we have Blessing from Humuson Complex, who will share valuable insights with us. Blessing, the floor is yours.
So today I will be talking, I will be like in appendage to what these guys have been saying, especially what these guys have been saying about crop nutrition. I'll be dwelling much on the use of foliar fertilizers to feed greenhouse tomatoes. It has been our culture that we always apply nutrition through the soil. Applying through the foliar way has never been our way of doing things from the past. But things have been changing, and we can now even apply nutrition, fertilizers, and biostimulants through your leaves. So I'll start by defining what a foliar fertilizer is, or what is called foliar feeding. Foliar feeding is whereby you'll be applying liquid fertilizers directly to the leaves. I like the word directly because it means that all the time we've been applying into the soil, but the end result is the nutrition has to get into the leaves. So we are applying the nutrition directly to the leaves where it's required. So it's another way of applying nutrition to your crop. So I'll be looking at application of fertilizers and biostimulants. For others who might want to know what biostimulants are, biostimulants are substances that we can add or give to our crops so that we can stimulate certain biological processes. We can have biostimulants to help improve photosynthesis. We can have biostimulants to improve root development. We can have biostimulants to improve any biological process that can be occurring in our crop. So I'll move on to the benefits of using foliar fertilizers as a feeding method to our greenhouse crop in particular. So by using foliar fertilizer, we can really alleviate deficient symptoms of particular nutrients in a much faster way. Because by applying through the leaves, we are giving like a drip injection to someone who is hospitalized. We are giving nutrition where it's required. So we require nutrients to be in the leaves where they are assimilated into different compounds, which gives us growth and the reproductivity of our tomatoes. So we also have got our immobile nutrients, like this guy rightly pointed out that calcium is a very immobile nutrient, especially in winter, where we've got kind of humid conditions which prevent enough air circulation to help the transpiration stream. So we are saying your calcium, as an example, is quite immobile. So you can apply it through the leaves so that it can get where it's required for cell division, where it's required to influence other nutrients for the plant to be in sound or integral health. We can also talk about the benefits in terms of when we have got conditions such as drought. Drought is a condition whereby we don't have enough moisture in the soil to sustain a crop. So if we have if we got impaired root system just because the conditions are droughty, then we can apply nutrients via the leaves and bypass the rooting system. And then we can also have pressure from pests and diseases. We're talking of nematodes. Nematodes, if they can't find food in the soil like they normally do, they get food from carbon in the soil. If there's no carbon in the soil, they feed on the roots of your crop, and your roots become impaired so that they cannot take any more nutrition. So we can use the leaves to feed the crop directly rather than wait for the recovery of the damaged roots. So it's some of those benefits. And next we are going to talk about topping up of our nutrients during peak demand times. There are times when your crop is requiring a certain nutrient, but because, for example, your crop is requiring amino acids to build proteins. So if you apply your fertilizer in the soil, it means that the fertilizer has to be broken down into amino acids, into nitrites, into nitrates, into ammonia, and then come in and become the required amino acid. But we are in peak demand. We need to really alleviate a deficiency. So we can use foliar application to to help with this one. And also we can use foliar feeding to prime photosynthesis by supplying the trace elements required to pump in photosynthesis. For example, we need nutrients such as your magnesium, your iron, your nitrogen, your zinc. These nutrients really work together to make sure that the crop is photosynthetically efficient. So we can provide nutrients via the leaves so that we can heighten our rate of photosynthesis in a much quicker way. There's also reduce the losses of nutrients from you apply your nutrition, but for it to get to the usable form, the form in which plants can use these nutrients, it has to be first converted into the plant available form. And during this chain of conversions, losses can happen. Volatilization, leaching, lockup, you can name them, but if you apply as a foliar feed, you can bypass these ones. So actually, foliar feeding is kind of what we call metabolic bypass. We are bypassing certain processes by applying filler through foliar. And then there's also rapid absorption and assimilation of nutrients, because you are not going through a lot of other things to get to what you want. Okay, so moving next, I'll be talking about the factors that affect the application of fertilizers and biostimulants. In this time, I'm talking about factors affecting the efficiency of foliar fertilizers and biostimulants. The other thing that most guys talk about is the risk of burning a crop. How much can you apply to a crop without burning it? Because some of the nutrients that you apply to a crop, if they're applied in excess, there's a risk of burning the crop. So as a general rule of thumb, you can say you should be around the 2% solution if they are the macronutrients, because in excess of this 2% solution, you might see some burning happening to your crop. So it's a risk that affects the efficiency. People end up using 1% solution, which end up also giving a very, very shallow gradient for the diffusion of nutrients into the plant. So it's a very important there. And there's also weather restrictions. We need to apply foliar nutrition where there's some bit of air circulation. Air circulation is very important. Why? Because when the air is circulating, it prevents the buildup of a barrier, of an insulation barrier between the leaf and the atmosphere. So if you apply any nutrition to your crop, when there's poor air circulation, in this case, we're talking of greenhouses, where sometimes because of poor ventilation, you can see stagnant air in the greenhouse, which have got some also negative impacts to the absorption of the foliar applied fertilizers. Higher temperatures can actually cause the plant to shut off in some of the stomata. And when stomata are shut off, it means there's no gas exchange. So usually the plants end up wasting energy during photorespiration, which we can discuss on another day. There's also an issue of humidity in the greenhouse tomatoes production. Humidity, we are talking about the measure of moisture within the environment, within the atmosphere of the crop. So in general, absorption of nutrients is optimum between a humidity range of 40% to 60%, above which the transpiration stream might stop, and below which the condition might be too dry for the crop to be in an excited mood to be taking in nutrients through the leaves. And then the application time, what time of the day do you apply these products? You see that if you apply your foliar fertilizer like early in the morning, like a dawn, that is early before it's very hot or at dusk, you can see that the crop is like in a responsive mode. The pores are opened. Okay, so let's move next to the next slide. So how do we then improve the effectiveness of these foliar fertilizers? The efficiency or the effectiveness of foliar fertilizers, we are looking at how much of what you apply is absorbed by the plant. We are looking at the formulation here. How is the spray mix formulated? What does it contain? The concentration, I was talking about the 2% solution. It is very necessary to have a concentration gradient of what you're applying versus what's in the plant already. Having a gradient ensures that nutrients can easily move into the plant. And then you're also looking of having a carbon source. Carbon is one of those elements that is very important for foliar fertilizer application. Why? Because carbon really activates the opening and closing of plant cell membranes. And carbon, I'm talking specifically about fulvic acid, humic acid. These are substances they really help the plant to be more receptive to foliar application of fertilizers. I'll delve deeper on the carbon source, but at the moment, I'm also looking at humidity. Like I mentioned, that you need to have a humidity range. It does not have to be too dry or too wet, the environment in the greenhouse, so that we can have efficient uptake of these nutrients. We can also look at air circulation, that we need to have a continuous movement of air in the greenhouse. For example, if your humidity is too high, above 60%, the transpiration stream, the route of water movement from the roots to the back out into the atmosphere through the plant. When it's too humid, there is not much water movement into the plant. And as such, nutrients such as calcium, which depend on the xylem or on the movement of water through the plant to be absorbed, they can become deficient even though they're in the soil. So if you can improve air circulation in the greenhouse, you surely have good, better nutrient assimilation and absorption. So I'll move on to the next slide so that we can have more time for interaction after this. Right. As Humuson complex, we've got products which can really help with assimilation or the nutrient use efficiency of foliar fertilizers. And one of those products is called the Grow Plus product, which is a complex of 40 nutrients. And I think someone has already mentioned, I think it's design that plants require a vast of nutrients to attain the genetic potential. We're talking about 17 essential nutrients for us to attain the yield of 12 to 15 kgs per plant. But without enough of these, we cannot get there. So our product called Grow Plus can really help you by providing the fulvic acid, which I was talking about. Fulvic acid here is the magic thing because it really helps the plant cell membranes to become more porous, more permeable, so that when you apply your nutrition through the leaves, they can get into the plant as easy as possible. So looking at fulvic acid in particular, you will see that it has got what we call a chelating effect, whereby it tries to neutralize the charge of the cation that you apply into the soil. We apply nutrients which have got a charge. For example, looking at calcium, your potassium, these guys, they've got a positive charge. And looking at the plant cell membranes, you see that it is negatively charged. So when you try to apply your fertilizers through the leaves without a chelator such as fulvic acid, there's going to be congestion of nutrients at this plant leaves, because they'll be like attached to the leaves instead of getting inside. So using fulvic acid neutralizes the charge of these nutrients and they become more available. They become easily absorbable by the plants. So that is the role of fulvic acid in increasing the efficiency of use of your nutrients when you're feeding through the foliar. Besides fulvic acid and humic acid, Grow Plus also contains micronutrients, a range of them, some of which I was talking about. When you need to prime photosynthesis, you need to apply your magnesium, your iron, your zinc. So Grow Plus come with an array of these important nutrients. And besides these micronutrients, you also got vitamins, the B vitamins, which are very important in helping our crops to have an induced systemic resistance, whereby a plant should be able to defend itself against pathogens, against pests. So it helps really for a farmer who is doing a crop to make money, of which that's the goal after all. So if you apply these balanced nutrients to your soil, you also see that you only spray chemicals when necessary. And also, we are also looking at the availability of nitrogen in the amino acid form in GrowPlus. GrowPlus have got nitrogen, but in a much more refined form. Amino acid is the best form of nitrogen that you can ever give to your plant, to your tomato in this case, because amino acids is a job I've done. So I just need to feed the amino acids, they get into proteins, the plant grows, the plant's got more energy to do other things like reproduction. So that's where your GrowPlus comes into play. They also got what we call phytohormones. Phytohormones are a component, are a constituent of GrowPlus. Phytohormones are talking of hormones which determine the growth of shoots and roots. You've got your cytokinins, you've got your axons. They are all there in GrowPlus, which is really going to have a very good effect to your yield. Everyone who knows about GrowPlus, they're sure they can attest that when you apply GrowPlus to a crop, it's like the magic wand has been waved. So that's GrowPlus for you. And then I'll go to the next one, which is an amino acid called maxproline. It's called L-proline, but the trade name is maxproline. This amino acid is one of the favorites during this time of the year because it really helps your crop to fight all forms of stress. Stress from low temperatures, stress from very high temperatures. In greenhouses at the moment, there's less risk of frost damage, but sometimes during the day, the temperatures can get very high that the plant start to waste its energy during a process called photorespiration. So this amino acid, it's a natural amino acid. Plants usually make amino acid proline on their own naturally, but that's why plants stagnate growing in winter because they are focusing their energy in producing this amino acid. So we have the amino acid ready. You give the plant the amino acid so the plant can focus on other things than focusing on the production of this amino acid. This amino acid have got impact that besides stress alleviation, there's also an issue whereby it adds sugar levels within your crop. A crop with a high sugar content is a crop that is not very subject to temperature variations. So for greenhouse farmers, amino acid L-proline is your friend. So yeah, basically this is what we have from Humuson side. Maybe we can move to the next slide. Next slide. Yeah, that is it. So for us to have the yield that we really want to have, for us to have the best yield from our greenhouse tomatoes, we must have a holistic view of plant nutrition. We have to use all means possible for the plant to be more efficient in doing what it is made to do. So this means applying nutrition either as foliar, ground application. You have to integrate these things together for the best result. Okay, thank you, Rollins. I'll hand it over back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Blessing, for that enlightening presentation. And farmers, please note that our meeting is now at full capacity. If you know of anyone trying to join, please advise them to watch us live on the Agribusiness Media Facebook page. We are now in the question and answer segment of our webinar, and please do keep your questions and comments coming. And I see a number of questions that we have received here, and we'll start with this question. It says, what causes the difference in coloration, as you can see from the picture? I don't know who can take that one. That's Izai.
Okay, it could be a physiological disorder that's affecting that crop. It's important for the farmer to get to understand where they bought their variety, because most well-bred varieties that enter market generally more uniform. So that can be an off-type variety. I'm not too sure why it's discoloring, but I could attribute it to a physiological disorder.
Well, thanks, Zai, for taking that one. Then the second question says, thanks, Labyrinth, for such a great presentation. Most nurseries are a scam. They are selling us wrong varieties. A friend of mine bought Mofrinirwa I don't know what that means, and he lost big time. Any recommendations on reputable nurseries or caution to us farmers?
Okay, I'll take that one, Rollins. We certainly do have reputable nurseries, but what we would want our farmers to really know is that when we look at farming as a business, it's a partnership, as you put it, to say it's a partnership. The farmer has to partner a seed company, they have to partner a fertilizer company, they have to partner a chemical company. And in this instance, you have put that together for them. You will see even the theme that we used on our full day is that we tried to really bring in those partners to be available. Just to answer, for example, from the SeedCo perspective, a few of the nurseries that I would just mention, not all of them are exhaustive. Less others think that I've rendered them to be not the authentic ones. You have places like your Hobart Seedlings, Glebe Nurseries, Seedling Hub. What else was there? I think there was there were 4 nurseries or so. I think that we had at our Chelsea Total Farm Solution. I think they were there. They have a nursery, but if they talk to us at the time of purchase, remember when we start doing the greenhouse construct crops, for example, not only to mention even other fields, there is investment behind farming. So whilst there is monetary investments towards farming, which is obvious, like your structure, your land prep, your equipment, there is also deliberate investment that is required from the farmer towards creating partners. From this platform, I am a resource, which I can become a partner. Zidza is a resource, he can become a partner. A Blessing is a resource, which farmers should take advantage of, especially from these kinds of forums where we are put together. That when you ask to say, where I get a good nursery, I can confidently tell you, obviously, whether it's in inbox or it's in our contacts, to say, no, you can try there, you can try there, you can try there. But for farmers to do things on their own without investing in the resources, which are not financial, which are also personnel resources, which are also company resources in terms of fertilizers and chemicals, it makes the cycle incomplete. So the farmers need to learn to make sure they partner with these kinds of partners which are coming there. If you saw my area, for example, in terms of SeedCo, or even ZFC, I'm sure, even from the Blessing side, if you say you're in Manicaland, I can direct you to our representative there. The companies pay us specifically to become resources to the farmers, not only a resource to sell what we sell as a company, but also a resource for correct information, accurate information, to make sure the farmer is successful. That's how I would sort of respond to that question. But like I said, it's really, really happening at very alarming levels. I remember seeing on another post, should have been on Facebook, somebody selling seedlings at the price which is below the cost of the seed before production. That is not possible. So if we sell Candela, for example, at $70 per 1,000, you cannot then find somebody trying to sell you seedlings at a lower price than that. Not only that, but you cannot find somebody establishing that nursery on the ground. How do you justify the germination percentages by planting seedlings, high value seedlings on the ground? Already, those are red flags that you can tell to say, no, there is an error there already. So these are some of the red flags that farmers should pick, but to avoid that, farmers must deliberately partner with the companies that they work with, either they're supplying seed, fertilizers, or chemicals.
All right, thanks for that one. Then whilst you are still there, Lebrim, my question here says, if I am to plant SeedCo tomato variety, does SeedCo give agronomist services? And is it at a cost?
Okay. SeedCo does give agronomy advice. For example, the whole exercise that I was doing here, that was obviously part of the agronomy services that we can do. And then over and above giving this kind of agronomy advice, we also add visits there. And then, like you would notice, some of the products are not coming from the SeedCo vegetable basket. So for example, if you are going to want to then get detailed assistance on fertilizers and chemicals, I would immediately say, no. For your fertilizers, visit ZFC. There is, for tomatoes, we had a webinar with Zidzai, for example. Let him handle your fertilizer requirements. because he will then look at your soil results and then he works with you through the crop. Similarly, if there are chemical companies, if there is anything that we don't, ZFC doesn't have, he's also going to do the same, because it's an industry principle where they will then say, okay, no, for you to complete the spray program for Tuta, you also need this molecule is found from this company A, B, C, D. That's the integrity that we have. So in terms of us charging you for the service, we don't charge you, because we are going to then say, this is the roadmap. This is where you can get this product. This is where you can get this information. But we are trying to make it as solid as possible. So you are going to see that if it's your fertilizer program, we are likely going to say, no, for tomatoes, go to ZFC. For your chemicals, talk to ZFC. If there's anything that they don't have, you can try also option B, option C, option D. But it's a question of creating a relationship with each of them. So from us, you will not get charged to get the roadmap, which is exactly what I was presenting here, because that's exactly the same conversation that we're going to have. And then, of course, over in that conversation, we'll add the visits there to make sure we can then put everything into context, depending on your unique situation as a farmer.
All right, thanks for clarifying on that one. Then Rumbizai says, I think it's almost the same question, but directed to ZFC and Humuson. Do you also provide agronomy support?
Certainly. Okay, certainly as ZFC we do. We've got different agronomy stations across the country. They are mobile. They can even do van sales. You can order a chemical, certain chemical, bring me so these chemicals. Then they can be sold at you. They can be sold to you right at the farm without any cost, and the service is for free for as long as you get ZFC product.
All right, thanks. Then Blessing.
Oh yeah, yes, we do offer such services. We do field visits. Sometimes upon request, people can request for field visits, for farm visits, so that we can give them customized recommendations. So we are available at your service at no cost across the country.
All right, thanks for taking that one. Then Brian, your hand was up.
Yes, thanks for the floor. So I'm Brian from SeedCo. I just had a follow-up comment to what Svanda has alluded to. Apart from the visits to farmers, we also have a trial station where farmers can actually come in to have free training. We don't charge them; they just come and we train them about our varieties and practices. Those were my comments.
Sure. Thanks so much, Brian, for that comment and for answering that question. And then another question here is, my tomatoes have grown up my trellis. How do I manage them to continue growing? Don't blink if you can get one.
They said the tomatoes have grown out. I couldn't get the other part. They said tomatoes have grown out.
They're saying my tomatoes have grown above my trellis. I don't know, is it above the trellising wire? Then how do I manage?
Yes, there are two ways of doing it. The first way of doing it is to do what we call lowering, where you then loosen. Normally that string that we use, because remember we have an anchor at the top of the trellis. So the string that we use, generally we leave it in space so that you can lower the stems, especially the lower, once you've harvested the lower fruits, you start lowering the stem so that you get more space to get it to rejuvenate. Or alternatively, what others are doing elsewhere, they do layering. So if your anchor a wire at the top is firm enough, you start now training your plants to go along the trellising wire at the top. That helps to also then give you a slightly longer production. But for tomatoes, it's best to lower them because the stem for tomatoes is quite robust and strong enough to sustain handling. That is, you lower it, you prune it off, then you lower it, making sure it moves. Remember, I was telling you about Alhambra, which was at about 4 meters. So you continue lowering until you get that long, that lengthy stem, still maintaining production probably at the top 1.5 meters or so of the tomato crop.
All right, thanks. for taking that one. Then this one is for Blessing. Where can we get Humuson products in Gweru?
Okay, in Gweru, we are distributing our product through farm shop and farm biz. Yeah, that is for Gweru.
All right, thanks. Then this one, this question says, is it possible to alternate ground and sec production instead of crop rotation and continue to have tomatoes in the greenhouse? It's from Walter. I don't know, Lebrin, if you can take that one.
Maybe the question again, so I was trying to respond to something. Is that one?
Yes, the question is on, okay, it says, is it possible to alternate ground and sec production instead of crop rotation to continue having tomatoes for continuous tomato production?
Oh, yes, it's possible. Although you will notice that when we look at some of the pests that build up to reduce the longevity of our tomato crops, they come from the adults. So once you are in full control of the adults, you can, because what he's trying to say there is that in terms of dealing with the soil, the media, that's what he's trying to say, that once you produce from the ground, you alternate, you put them in buckets. Now you notice that there are systems that are getting really automated, where you put in the pine bark media, and it's actually the pine bark, it's mostly the peat moss media, I think, that they use. And this tomato grows with injectors, which directly put nutrients in there. So depending on the scale of operation, that's certainly an option, because even if you're growing those ones, you can keep them even much longer, or you can repeat the crop, as long as you don't then end up with a buildup of the adult moth or the adult butterflies that then cause your issues. But there is obviously a limit as to the time when we can continue having the crop without starting to face challenges. So it's possible to use different medium. I remember at some point there were options of using the sausage type of plastics and so on. This was all to do with trying to keep a crop longer in the field, at the same time maintaining high yields. So there are options, it's very possible, yes.
All right, thank you once again for taking that one. And then this one is a comment, a very informative webinar. Thanks Agribusiness Media, ZFC, and SeedCo and Humuson. Sure, thanks Farmer for tuning in. Then thanks Zizai. Tutor is a big challenge to us farmers. How much is a tutor pack, or how much is the tutor pack that you mentioned?
Okay, thank you. Is around $30 for the product, and the area that they cover is essentially a hectare. So for a greenhouse, it's pretty much more repeated application.
All right, thank you, Zizai. Then what do you recommend as the best basal and crop fertilizer? I think they joined in late. I don't know if you can quickly that one.
The best basal fertilizer comes from the soil analysis result that we then translate and say you can use this kind of fertilizer. But it's also important for me to highlight to farmers that we also do what we call customized fertilizers, where your soil, we manufacture a fertilizer product that matches your soil requirements. So it can be 5 to 18, it can be 27 to 100 or so, depending on what the soil analysis results then say. We can do the customized blend.
All right, thanks. Then this one is for Blessing. Does Maxiprolin work in a greenhouse?
Sorry, come again.
Okay, they're asking if your product Maxiprolin works under greenhouse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the product works out on all kinds of environments. Could it be greenhouse, open field? You can still apply Maxiprolin, because basically it's you're helping your crop to relieve stress, any form of stress. Could be from diseases, from pests, and from environmental conditions such as high temperatures or low temperatures. So you can apply Maxiprolin under any conditions.
All right, thanks. And just a reminder, farmers, please do keep your questions and comments coming via the chat room here on Zoom, or you can comment if you're watching us live on the Agribusiness Media Facebook page. Then this one says, thanks, Zizai. When is the best time to control pests? As soon as they appear in our field, or wait for a certain significant population?
Yes, we wait for a certain significant population, because remember, you don't want to have a build of your pesticide within the crop, as well as it's uneconomic for us to control very few insects. It's important to monitor when you have that the economic threshold level, say around 10-15% of the insect population, anticipated insect population, then you can come in with your control mechanism before they develop into various stages.
All right, thank you. Then this one is for Labyrinth. It says, is there a difference in the taste of tomatoes, greenhouse versus open field, and which is the most preferred in the market?
Okay, I would say there could be minor differences in terms of the actual taste on account of how sugars are being converted within the plant, because normally the taste is a function of how the sugars are being converted. And then secondly, if you're using a good program which is similar, you may not get really taste differences on account of your sugars and salts. But in terms of preference, you'll notice that the greenhouse tomato is preferred in certain sections of the market where probably they are consuming the tomato raw. Whereas when we are trying to sell to the open market where the tomato is predominantly for cooking, they then prefer the open field one. I know when farmers started doing very good quality open field tomatoes, the market would query if they are not greenhouse, because there was some stigma around the greenhouse tomato as not being suitable for cooking well. So it's not really something of material difference, but it's really about you concentrating the sugars, then that influences the taste. But if you are supplying those niche markets where the volumes are quite low, they prefer the greenhouse tomato. Cleanliness, presentation, it comes with certain advantages in terms of how it looks like.
Right, thanks. Then this one is for Blessing. Can we integrate Humuson with other fertilizers?
Yes, very well. Actually, our product works very well under integration setups. For example, when you are planting your crop, you can integrate our basal drench called carbamine. When you apply using this basal, could be 628, 23, you then come in with a drench of carbamine, which really help your crop to access all the applied nutrients, which actually help to avoid lockup of phosphates, which avoid the loss of nitrogen through leaching. So it's really a good combination to integrate synthetic fertilizers with our products. And also looking at what Labyrinth has just said about the sugar levels of fruits, we are talking of the keeping quality here. How long does a tomato last before it can get bad? Our products with its constituents has been found to help increase these sugar levels. So actually, it's a very good combination to be integrating the products. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Blessing, for taking that one. Then, Ziza, you mentioned crop rotation. What are the best crops to rotate with tomatoes?
Well, for rotations, the important factor is to rotate it with the different families. Like your tomatoes, they are in the Solanaceae. You can rotate with the brassicas. Your brassica, in the brassicas, you've got your cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower. You can rotate with your legumes. You can decide to do your, what do you call them? The sugar beans. You can put in your peas. So it now then depends on the farmer's preferences, especially when targeting the market. And also you can come in with your cucumber beets, be it your squash, your English cucumbers, etc. So your choice has got to be a difference in the family of the crops, as well as serving the intended market or target market of the farm.
All right, thanks, Tizai. Then Tizai says, what is the correct approach to pruning tomato leaves? Is there any such thing as over pruning? Labyrinth, if you can take that one.
Yes, there is such thing called over pruning, because the purpose of pruning is to make sure you keep enough foliage to feed the fruits that are available. So as a matter of principle, normally we only prune out those leaves that are no longer productive. Though I know in greenhouses, you get the people having the temptation to really prune entirely the whole plant to be seeing the fruit is good, but you want to at least be pruning only those leaves that are showing signs of dying off or senescence, if we call it with this correct term, so that it is you keep the leaf as the primary source of your photosynthesis, and also making sure they feed each cluster according to where it is. Because when you remove the fruits, you're assuming that these are no longer requiring the nutrients or the photosynthesis that are coming from the leaves. So over pruning actually happens. We only do over pruning when you have been caught up and probably you have been attacked by a disease. And in that instance, you're trying to recover the crop through. So you're forced to then first try and prune out what is diseased, and then you rejuvenate your spray program. But under normal circumstances, pruning should be gradual, and we only deal with leaves that are yet to, that are showing signs of senescence or that are dying off.
Okay, thanks for taking that one. Then I will take two last questions, and this one is for Dzidzai. It says, is it true that tobacco blend is much better than other fertilizers in tomatoes? It's from Nai. I don't know if you can take that one, Dzidzai.
All right. You'll be surprised to hear another farmer say, is it true that compound C is much better than vegetable blend or tobacco blend? What it means is that that particular farmer chose or was recommended the appropriate product for their situation, and they got the best quality and the best yields out of their crop. Which brings us back to say, let us do some soil analysis first before we choose the fertilizer product, because I can confidently say that the 6-20-23, the tobacco blend which they used, was positioned to supply all the necessary elements in the rightful quantities, rightful time, etc., to get what they are now using to testify of the goodness of the tobacco blend. So let's do our soil analysis. Let's get the best recommendations, and you'll be surprised you'll be surprised having yourself getting the best yields out of a fertilizer that is probably categorized by me.
All right, thanks, Dzidzai. Then lastly, it's for the question is directed to Blessing. It says, where can we get Max Proling? I am in Harare.
Okay. In Harare, you can visit our offices, Loma Gundi Road, number 700 Loma Gundi Road, near Blue Lagoon Shops. So you can come there, you can give it the product. We can also have time to sit and discuss about how you can better your crop. So that's where you can have a product, but basically we are open to you guys to come and we can discuss how best we can help you have a better crop. Yeah.
All right, thanks for taking that one, Blessing. As we conclude our webinar, let's hear final thoughts from our presenters. We'll start off with Dzidzai. Any parting shots, Dzidzai? All right, whilst I think there's a network issue there. Labyrinth, any parting shots?
Yes, thank you, Rollins. My parting shots to the farmers is that the first one, let's always start with the right seed, and you incur the rest of the cost, at least on something that you know what is coming through. Once you have got the right seed, let's get the right quality seedlings out of it, which is either through nurseries that can do you the best in terms of the quality. Let's have the farmers take advantage of our trial site, like Brian indicated. In the past few weeks, we're running full days. But remember, for us to then do a full day and show you a mature crop, there was a time when that crop was being planted. There was a time when that crop was being managed on a daily basis through the entire life cycle of its crop. So this trial site is available from Monday to Friday for somebody who wants to say, okay, I wasn't able to come for the full day, but I want to come and learn something from you. You are open to come through. Should you decide that your team wants also to be trained, they can come through, take advantage of it. It's available for farmers. We have had serious testimonies of farmers We have just decided to say, no, I want to restructure my operation. They would spend a week there, appreciate all that is required. And when they went back, the results were really amazing because it's a school which is practical. So take advantage of our trial site, come through, don't hesitate to invest in your time. And then lastly, always consider all technical people as your partners as well, as a farming business. Take advantage of them, create a relationship with them. I remember during the flu day, I would tell people that many of us, when we fall ill, we have a specific facility that we visit for our health. If it's not our doctor, or if some of us even have family doctors. So farming is also like that. You need to have your personalized relationships that fit into your operation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lebrinth. Then, Blessing, any parting shots?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to encourage the farmers to work very close with service providers like agronomists, so that they can be assisted. Like in this case, they can come to us. We can assist them in having a nutritional program that is very sound and which can actually help them reduce the cost of production, because we believe that a healthy crop is a crop that has good ability to fight off some of the silly pests and diseases that we see as a menace in our fields. So yeah, let's work together. Let's have a crop that's got nutritional integrity, a crop that can be able to help us reduce the cost of production. And after all, what matters most is your return per dollar. So yeah, that is what I can say and encourage to the farmers.
Well, thanks, Blessing. Then if you can share your contacts whilst you are still there.
Okay, you can get in touch with us 0773 233 830. I'll repeat the number again, 0773 233 830. That is my contact number. You can get in touch and then we can discuss further.
Thanks,
thank you,
Blessing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Then, Lebrinth, your contact, please.
Okay, thank you, Rollins. My contact number is 0774 664 068, 0774 664 068. So if you can get in touch there, I can then even share with you the other contacts of our fellow team agronomists, whether they're in Midlands, or they're in Bulawayo, or they're in Manicaland, so that we assist each other to get things right from the onset.
Thanks so much, Lebrinth. Then, we would like to thank all our farmers and our partners, and to express our gratitude to Lebrinth Sibanda from SeedCo Vegetables, Zidzai from ZFC, and Blessing from Humuson Complex for making this event a resounding success. And a special thank you to all farmers who joined us today. Until next time, farewell and happy farming.